I was on Canon Rumors the other day and I noticed that there is a patent that was filed by Canon. Thank you, Canon Rumors, for this information. And it's a lens arrangement or glass arrangement for a 35mm RF lens. And I'll tell you, I'm super excited by that because I think the 35mm lens is the most versatile prime focal length there is. And we're going to talk about that in this video. And this is not the RF 35mm. This is the EF 35mm f1.42, and this lens is pretty much with me all the time, no matter what I'm doing. If I'm shooting weddings, this is in my bag. If I'm shooting headshots for somebody, this is in my bag. If I'm shooting events, this is definitely in my bag. Weddings, events, kind of same thing. Portraits. But whenever I'm shooting people, basically, this lens is in my bag. It's super versatile for a prime lens. It's not a zoom, but you can get close-up headshots that are great, and you can also take a few steps back away from your subject and you can get like an environmental portrait. And the thing is, with the 35mm, it's wide, but it's not super wide, so you can get enough of a background to tell a story, or at least tell where the person is, and it kind of lends to the idea of what they're wearing and whatever's going on in the photo. It kind of helps tell the story, you know. So it's pretty versatile, and in this video I'm going to talk about the 4 reasons why I think the 35mm is the best and most versatile prime lens you can buy. So stick around, I'll tell you what's going on after the intro. All right, so let's talk about the 4 things that I think make the 35mm the most versatile lens in your camera bag, and why I think everyone should have one. So first thing, let's talk about distortion. As I get closer and closer, what's the minimum focus distance? Looks like I'm still kind of in focus here. So if this was a wide angle lens, like a 24mm or 15, 16, that kind of thing, I would be stretched out. I'd be pulled longer, or if my limbs got close to the edge of the frame, they'd be like pulled out longer. And by the way, this is the 35mm we're filming on. This is at 1.4, so I should have a nice creamy background behind me. And yeah, so if you're filming with a wide angle lens, you're gonna get distortion. And 35 is wide, but it's not super wide, and it's not wide enough to distort anything. So that's why I really love it for shooting weddings and events. You don't have to worry about people's faces getting stretched or arms or anything like that. And the people, if you're doing a group shot, the people at the edge of the frames, they're not gonna be wider than they should be. And it's, you know, no one wants to get all, you know, dressed up for a wedding and then have a portrait taken of them where they look wide. Not fun. So yeah, that is one of the things. And if you're shooting with a longer lens, like an 85, 135, 200 that has compression, it doesn't have the distortion, so you don't have to worry about that with longer lenses. Number 2, and look at that creaminess. Oh my God, 1.4. Oh, it is so nice. Okay, so number 2, I like the 35 because I think it's the perfect focal length for shooting people. Now, a lot of people go to the Nifty 50. I think the Nifty 50 is trash. I don't like that focal length. The thing is with the 50mm, the 50mm is the closest focal range to what you see with your eyes. Like when you look around a room, when you look around the world, when you explore the world, you're seeing everything in about 50mm. So in my opinion, as a creative, why do I want to go and shoot photos at 50mm? It's the exact same thing I see. It's not exciting. It's not long enough to be exciting. It's not wide enough to be exciting. It's just kind of meat and potatoes, boring old 50, you know. And I find the 35 to be way more versatile because I mentioned this earlier in the video too, that the 35 really has two kind of, you can use it in 2 ways. So it's almost like a zoom lens without zooming, because like I did earlier, you can get close like this and you can get a nice portrait of somebody's face. Here's just a headshot, head and shoulders, that kind of deal. Or if somebody goes really far back, you can kind of get like an environmental shot of the person in their environment. And I think that's what makes the 35 so versatile. Caught on my rug here. And yeah, that's basically it. That's all I wanted to say for number 2, is it's a super versatile lens because you can get close, you can get far, environmental shots or close-up headshots, and it's like having 2 lenses in your bag when it's just 1 lens. So number 3, and the 3rd reason I love the 35mm is the depth of field you get out of it. Technically, it's a wide angle lens, so the depth of field is a little wider than, let's say, an 85 or a 135 or a 200mm, where the depth of field is really compressed, right? You get a really shallow depth of field. So the nice thing with the 35 is you can get models of the 35. I'm using a 1.4 here, but you can get Sigma art lenses is a 1.8 or 1.4 as well. I think it's a 1.4. So there are options out there to get 35s at 1.4. And the nice thing with that lens is that you can get, up close to your subject matter and get a nice creamy background, which is great if you want to take an artistic shot of the bride. But if you want to take a group shot, you change your aperture to 5.6, and the depth of field is wide enough that you get everybody in the group shot in focus, because rookie mistake, you like shooting weddings at 1.2 or 1.8, and then you have to take a group shot and one person's eyes are in focus and the rest of the group is all blurry. I made that mistake before when I first started. So, you got to remember to change your aperture. And the nice thing about the 35 millimeters, you don't have to make the aperture too big to get everybody in focus. So that's definitely a huge advantage when you're shooting weddings and events. And if you're shooting in low light, like I'm shooting in low light right now, I just have the one light and some LEDs and stuff. And at 1.4, I'm at ISO, I think, what ISO, man? ISO 800 right now on a R5. So it's not bad, right? ISO 800 looks pretty good at 1.4. You get a lot of light in the lens. So let's move on to number 4. And number 4, and another reason I really like the 35 millimeter, and this is totally subjective, is it kind of forces you to get into the action. Now, if you're shooting a wedding or an event, I used to shoot 200 millimeter all the time. I used to get a 70 to 200 and shoot events, and I'm always on the outsides with my lens, shooting, but you're never really in the action. You're never interacting with people. But I find as a photographer, you have to be interacting with the people. That's how you get them to smile. They get to know you. They feel comfortable with you. And if you're shooting with a 24 and something's happening, you have to get right up in close, because with a 24 millimeter, the person literally has to be, or the subject matter has to be in the center of the frame, because if they're anywhere around the outside, they get stretched out, so it doesn't look good. Plus, you have to get too close to the action. And when you're so close to the action at a wedding, you're kind of interfering with the action and you're kind of dictating what's happening rather than photographing what's happening. So 24 is too wide for that. 35, I find, is a good focal length because you're wide enough to get everyone's faces and get all the people, but you're not so wide that you have to get too close. Plus, you're not too far. You have to kind of get in there and mix it up with the people and kind of get in the shot to get the shot, which is good. So the 35 is, I guess you could say, it's a social lens. It gets you into that social range in order to get the photo. So that's, I think, is a bonus, because nobody likes that guy that, sits at the wall with the long lens and it's kind of taking photos of people from a distance. It's always uncomfortable. So it's nice to get to know the photographer. Is that the last one? I think those were the 4 reasons. Yeah. All right, so those are the 4 things I absolutely love about the 35 millimeter. But let's angle this down just a little bit here. But the one thing I don't like doing with the 35 millimeter is filming YouTube videos, like talking head videos like this. See, I have to get pretty far away from the camera to be able to film myself in the background. I don't know, I don't like the 35 millimeter focal length for video. I love it for photo. I don't know why, it doesn't make sense. Technically, I should love them for both, but that's just my personal opinion. I'd much rather film with something wider, like a 24 millimeter or 20 millimeter for video. And this just seems like too long of a focal length for YouTube videos. But hey, that's just my opinion right there. So those are the 4 reasons that I absolutely love the 35 millimeter for photo. The 1 reason I don't like it for video. And if you're looking to get into primes, personally, I think if you're going to be shooting weddings and events, portraits of people, you should definitely invest in a prime. If you want to get a zoom lens, like a 24 to 70 is a good multi-purpose zoom lens. And if you want to start collecting primes and you want to start with a 35, a good lens to pair with a 35 is a 135 or an 85. Personally, me, the 85 and 35 are my favorite. Those are the lenses I bring with me to almost every shoot. The 35, of course, you can get, your environmental portraits, nice wide shots. If you're shooting a couple, for example, you can get them kissing with the sunset in the background, you get a nice shot. And the 85 is great for getting right in there with a nice blurry background, isolating the subject. It is gorgeous. And the only other lens other than the 85 that I think would be really nice with the 35 is a 135. So 35, 135 would be a nice combo as well. Although with the 85, you can get 2 people in a shot. With the 135, you can get 2 people, but you got to go way back. So those are the lenses I'd recommend if you want to start building a prime collection and you're looking for something super versatile. So with that being said, this video is now over. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If there's anything with the 35mm that I didn't mention, something that you like about it, which I didn't talk about, leave it in the comments down below. We'll talk. We'll explore those ideas. And yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those are my social links. I'm pretty active on the Twitter. I try and stay on there as much as possible. And all right, if you want to see more videos like this, definitely subscribe to the channel, because I'll be making a lot more videos on photography and videography related stuff. We'll talk about the new Canon RF35 when it does come out. That's going to be pretty exciting. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it comes out sooner than later. But yeah, with that being said, this video is now done. Peace out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.